Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now this is a very special video as I have two stories to share with you. These two stories talk about haunted homes in Wausau, Wisconsin. The first story is of a guy who went squirrel hunting and might have brought something evil home with him. And then the second one is of a home that someone passed away in and their spirit still lingers there. Thank you to the viewers who submitted these stories, and if you would like to have your stories featured on this channel, please send them to the email listed in the description below. And before we get started, remember to leave a like and subscribe, and without further ado, enjoy the show. I want to keep my name anonymous, but this story took place in Wausau, Wisconsin, and to this day, I still do not really know what to think about it. The reason why I wanted to share this story is because whenever people talk about haunted houses, they always talk about old houses. They talk about houses from the 1800s, old farmhouses, abandoned places, or houses where a lot of people died. But the house that I lived in was not like that at all. It was not old, and it wasn't falling apart. It didn't look creepy from the outside. If anything, it looked like any normal house in a newer neighborhood. I think that the house was built within the last 20 years, maybe even less than that when we first moved in. It had a normal garage, a small backyard, and everything inside still looked pretty modern. The basement was finished, the rooms were normal, and there was nothing about the house that made you feel like it was haunted. That is why I did not think the house itself was the problem at first. If I had to guess, I think that something followed me home. I'm not saying that that is for sure what happened. I'm not a shaman or anything like that. I'm just saying that the weird things happened after I went out squirrel hunting, and before that, the house was pretty normal. I had gone hunting with one of my cousins. It wasn't anything serious. We were not deep into the woods for days or anything like that. It was just one of those quick hunting trips where you go out for a few hours, walk around, and come back home before it gets too late. We were somewhere outside of town, and it was already getting cold because this was around the time when the trees were losing their leaves. That day, it was kind of strange, but not enough for me to think much of it at the time. I remember when we were walking back to the truck, I kept feeling like someone was behind us. My cousin was walking ahead of me, and I was carrying my stuff behind him. I would hear leaves crunching, but every time I turned around, there was nothing there. I told myself that it was probably just the wind or animals moving around. You know how the woods are. Even when there's nothing there, it still sounds like something is there. But one time I stopped walking because I thought I heard a branch snap right behind me. Not too far behind me, but directly behind me. I turned around really fast, and the woods behind us were empty. The trees were thin enough that I should have been able to see if a person was there, but there was nothing. My cousin asked me what I was looking at, and I told him that I heard something. He laughed and told me that I was just probably scaring myself. I laughed too because I didn't want to seem scared. We got into the truck and left. That night, when I got home, I put my hunting clothes in the garage because they smelled like dirt and leaves. I took a shower, ate dinner, and went to sleep like normal. The first weird thing happened maybe a couple of days after that. I was in my room, just lying in bed, and I heard footsteps in the hallway. It was late, probably around 1 or 2 in the morning. I was still awake because I used to stay up on my phone a lot. At first, I thought it was my dad using the bathroom. His room was on the other side of the house, and sometimes he would get up at night. The footsteps came slowly down the hallway. Step, step, step. Then, they stopped right outside my door. I looked toward my door and waited for my dad to knock or open it, but nothing happened. The hallway was dark under the crack of my door. I could see a little bit of light from the nightlight near the bathroom, but there was no shadow of feet or anything like that. I told myself that maybe I heard the house settling. Newer houses still made noises. The heater kicks on, wood expands, and just normal house sounds. I didn't want to make it into something scary. But then, I heard the same footsteps walk away, the same pace. Step, step, step. They went toward the living room and then stopped. I sat there for a little bit, listening. I didn't hear the bathroom door. I didn't hear the fridge. I didn't hear anyone cough or clear their throats. I just heard the normal hum of the house. The next morning, I asked my dad if he got up last night. He said no. I asked my mom, and she said that she didn't hear anything. My younger siblings were asleep too, so I just left it alone. A few days later, it happened again. This time, I was actually sleeping when the footsteps woke me up. They weren't loud, but they were clear. It sounded like someone walking barefoot or with socks on in the hallway floor. Our hallway floor was not carpet. It was that kind of laminated wood floor, so you can hear it when someone walks on it at night. I opened my eyes and waited. The footsteps came from the living room side and stopped outside my door again. I remember staring at the door and getting irritated more than scared. I thought that maybe one of my siblings was trying to mess with me. I sat up and said, "Who is that?" No answer. I waited for someone to laugh or run away, but nothing. Then, the doorknob moved. Not all the way. It did not turn completely. It just made a small clicking sound, like someone put their hand on it and moved it a little bit. That's when I started to get scared. I got up fast and opened the door, thinking that I might catch whoever was there. The hallway was empty. There was nobody running away, nobody hiding in the bathrooms, nothing. So I decided to go back into my room and locked the door. I know people say that you shouldn't be scared in your own home, but that night I slept with my lights on. I didn't even care. I just left it on and faced the wall. After those incidents, small things started to happen. The first thing were my keys. I always kept my keys in the same spot on my dresser. I had a little tray with my wallet, keys, and random coins there. One morning, I was getting ready to leave, and my keys were gone. I looked everywhere. I checked my dresser, under my bed, my pants from the day before, everywhere. But nothing. I got mad because I was going to be late. My mom helped me look, and she told me that I maybe must have left it in the truck. I checked the truck and nothing. Then, after about 20 minutes of searching, I went back to my room and found my keys sitting in the tray, right where they should have been. At first, I thought that maybe my mom had found them and put them there, but she was in the kitchen when I found them. I asked her, and she said that she didn't touch them. I even checked with my siblings, and they said that they don't know anything about it. I told myself that maybe I overlooked them. That's a pretty normal reasoning, but when something appears where you already checked, you just tell yourself that you were stressed and did not see it. But then it happened with other things. My headphones went missing and appeared inside one of my shoes by the garage door. My game controller that was in my room showed up in the bathroom sink. Nobody admitted to moving these things. It became one of those things where we would just joke about it because that made it a lot less scary. My parents would just tell me that perhaps I was moving these things or they fell out and I just forgot where I placed them. Now, this is where things got a little bit more creepy. I started to see a figure of a woman. I never got a good look at her. That's the biggest part that still bothers me. I only saw glimpses. The first time was in the reflection of the TV. I was sitting on the couch one night after everyone went to bed, and the TV was off because I was just using my phone. In the reflection, I saw someone standing by the entrance to the hallway. It looked like a woman. She was wearing black, like a black dress or black clothing that went down past her knees. Her hair was long and black, covering most of her face. I saw it for maybe 1 second, and I turned around fast. Nobody was there. I looked back at the TV, and the reflection was just the hallway again. I told myself that it was my own reflection or maybe something from outside. We had a window in the living room, and cars would pass by sometimes, so I tried to just explain it as that. Another time was in the kitchen. I was getting water late at night, and as I turned around from the sink, I saw a dark shape move past the dining room. It was not like a shadow from outside. It moved like a person walking. I saw black hair for just a moment, and then it was gone around the corner. I froze with the cup in my hand. I didn't want to check. This is the honest truth. You know, in movies, people always go chasing after things. But in real life, when you see something at night in your own house, you don't really want to go after it. You just stand there and listen, hoping that you didn't actually see what you think you saw. I stood there for maybe a full minute. No footsteps, no doors, no sounds, nothing. So I went back to my room and shut the door quietly. After that, I didn't like staying up alone in the living room anymore. Even during the day, the house felt different. It wasn't like a scary movie where everything was dark and dramatic. It was more like the house felt occupied, even when nobody was there. Like if I was home alone, I would still feel like someone else was in one of the rooms. During this time, I also had sleep paralysis. I've had sleep paralysis a few times before in my life, so at first I didn't think that it was connected. I knew what it was. You would wake up but can't move, and you might feel pressure on your body. Sometimes you hear things or see things because your brain is still half asleep. I told myself that that was all it was. But the one I had in that house was different. I woke up one night on my back. I couldn't move. I could see my room because I had a small lamp on my desk that I used as a nightlight. My door was closed and everything looked normal at first. Then I heard breathing. It wasn't my breathing. It was slow, like someone standing by my bed trying to be quiet. I tried to move my fingers, but I couldn't. I tried to call out, but nothing came out. My chest felt heavy, like something was sitting on it. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw black hair. She was standing beside my bed. I could not see her face because her hair was covering it. I could only see the side of her head and a part of her black clothing. She was leaning forward slightly, like she was looking down at me. I tried to shut my eyes, but even that was hard. I remember thinking to wake up, but I couldn't. Then, I felt something touch my wrist. It was cold. Not like a person with cold hands, but it felt more like when you touch metal in winter. I finally broke out of it and sat up so fast that I almost fell off my bed. The room was empty. I turned on the ceiling light and checked everywhere. Nothing was hiding under my bed, underneath my desk, or in my closet. So I turned off the lights and went back to sleep, thinking that perhaps it was just a dream. A couple of days later, I started to have this weird dream. I don't know if I should call it a dream or not because it felt too real. In the dream, I was back in the woods from the squirrel hunting trip. It was not like daytime when we went. It was dark and everything was hard to see. I was walking by myself and I could hear someone walking behind me. I turned around and she was there. The same woman, long black hair over her face, black dress, and she was standing maybe 10 feet behind me. I couldn't really make out any facial structures. I only saw the hair hanging down and the shape of her body. I tried to walk away, but my legs felt heavy. She didn't run. She just walked after me slowly. And every time I looked back, she was closer. Then I heard her say something, but I couldn't understand it. It sounded like whispering. I remember feeling like she was angry, but I didn't know why. In the dream, I turned to run, and that's when she grabbed my arm. I woke up immediately. I sat up straight in bed, breathing hard. My arm was hurt. Not just a little either. It hurt like someone actually squeezed it hard. I thought that maybe I slept on it wrong, but the pain was on the outside of my arm, above my wrist. I turned on the light. There were finger marks on my arm. 4 marks on one side and what looked to be a thumb on the other. I stared at it for a long time because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to wake everyone up and sound crazy. But at the time, I knew I did not do that to myself. The marks were too clear. The next day, I decided to show it to my mom. She just looked at it and got quiet. That scared me more than if she had reacted to it loudly. She asked me about what happened, and I told her about the dream. She didn't say much at first. She just told me to not talk badly about it and not to challenge it. Later, I heard her talking to one of my aunties on the phone. She was speaking quietly, but I could tell that she was worried. She mentioned the hunting trip and asked if spirits can follow people from the woods. My auntie told her that that was a pretty common occurrence and that people often bring home spirits from the woods. I don't know all the details, but after that, my mom put some protection near my door and told me to sleep with the lights on for a while. Now, you might think that this stopped it, but that's not the end of the story here. My experiences got a lot less intense, but it did not stop fully. I could still hear footsteps outside sometimes. Things would still go missing, and every once in a while, I would catch that black shape moving in the corner of my eye. There was one time when even my younger sibling asked if I had seen a lady in the house, and that's when I knew that it wasn't just me. We are still currently living in the house right now. We're not really sure what to do, but I'll keep you updated if anything else happens. This was a house that my family rented for a while. From the outside, the house looked normal. It wasn't huge, but it had enough space for us. There was a main floor, a basement, and a few bedrooms. One of the rooms was used as a guest bedroom because nobody wanted to sleep there full time. At first, we didn't know why. When we moved in, everything was fine. We were just happy to have a place. My parents were the type to not complain too much, and if something was broken, my dad would fix it. Now, what I'm about to tell you next are some of the experiences that my family and I had living in that house. Some of the first things that we noticed were footsteps. It didn't happen every night, but just enough that we eventually started to talk about it. It would happen late at night, usually after everyone was already in their rooms. We would hear someone walking in the hallway or near the kitchen. The steps were not loud like boots. They were soft but clear. Sometimes it sounded like someone walking from the living room to the hallway. Sometimes it sounded like someone walking upstairs when everyone else was downstairs. For the first few times, my dad thought it was just one of us getting water or using the bathroom. Once in a while, he would get up and check and notice that everybody would be in bed. My dad didn't act scared. He just said that maybe the house was settling. But the problem was that he stated the footsteps sounded too much like a person. It sounded like someone walking slowly because they didn't want us to wake up. Another thing about this house were the doors. One day, my mom was cooking and the basement door opened by itself. It didn't swing open quickly or anything like that. It just opened slowly, enough for her to notice from the kitchen. She thought that maybe it was one of us coming upstairs, but nobody came out. She walked over and looked down the stairs. Nobody was there. She closed the door and went back to cooking. A few minutes later, it opened again. This time, she called for my dad. My dad checked the door and said that maybe it was loose. He tested the doorknob and adjusted it. This time, it stayed shut, and he told us not to slam with it and mess with it. Now, that basement door often did things like that. Even though my dad fixed it, it would open by itself. There was one night, after dinner, we were all in the living room when the basement door clicked open again. All of us heard it. My dad got up right away. He seemed almost annoyed. He pushed the door closed and pulled on it. It didn't open, and he pushed on it from the side. It still didn't open. Then he looked at us and said that it was fine. Once in a while, we would come to that basement door open by itself, even when it seemed to have closed. It wouldn't be open all the way. Sometimes it would be open just a few inches. After that, doors became a normal issue in the house. The bedroom doors would open when they were closed, the closet doors would be open in the morning, and sometimes the bathroom door would shut when nobody was there. At first, we blamed the air pressure, windows, and everything else. But it happened even when the windows were closed and nothing was running. Then came the sounds of things falling. This was probably one of the more annoying ones because it would scare us for no reason. We would hear a loud thud from another room, like something heavy fell off a table or a shelf. Everyone would stop what they were doing and go check it out. Nothing would be on the floor. One time, we heard something fall in the kitchen. It sounded like a pan or maybe a cutting board dropping. My mom went in there right away because she thought that maybe something broke. Everything was in place. No pan on the floor, no cabinet that was open, nothing. Another time, I was home with my siblings and we heard something fall in the basement. It was loud enough that both of us jumped. We thought that maybe it was one of those storage bins that tipped over. We went downstairs together because neither of us wanted to go alone. Everything was normal. The bins were stacked, the boxes were in place, nothing was knocked over. That was the thing about that house. It made a lot of noise, but when you checked, there was never any proof. You would hear something, but there was nothing to see. Now, another thing about that house that I want to share is the whispering. I don't know if everyone heard them, but I know that I did. It wasn't a clear voice. It was more like when people are talking in another room and you can hear the sound of their voices but not the words. Sometimes it happened near the hallway, sometimes the basement door, and sometimes it sounded like it was coming from inside the wall. I would pause and try to listen, and then it would stop. One night I was doing my homework at the kitchen table, and I heard whispering come from the living room. The TV was off, and my parents were not home yet. My siblings were in their own rooms. I was sitting there with my pencil in my hand, and I listened. It sounded like two people talking low. I could not understand anything that they were saying. Then I finally said, "Hello?" The moment I said that, the whispering stopped immediately. I packed my homework into my bag and went into my room. That's where I finished the rest of my homework. Now, that house felt pretty haunted because we started seeing shadow apparitions. They weren't clear figures. They were more like dark shapes moving around the house. My mom told me about one time how she saw one. She was folding clothes in the living room and saw someone walk past the hallway. She thought it was me, so she called my name. I answered from the bathroom. She told me later that she got chills because whatever walked past the hallway was taller than me. My sibling also saw one too. They said that it was near the basement stairs. She said that it looked like a person standing at the bottom, but when she turned on the light, nothing was there. I also saw one as well. It was one time when I was in the kitchen. I was washing a cup and in the dark glass of the kitchen window reflection, I saw someone standing behind me. I turned around and there was nobody there. I looked back at the window and the reflection was gone. But the worst part of that house was the guest bedroom. That room was colder than every other room in the house. I know people say that about haunted rooms all the time, but I mean it was noticeably colder. In the winter, we thought that maybe the vent was bad. My dad checked it out and said that the air was coming through just fine. In the summer, it was still cold. Not freezing, but enough that when you walked in, you noticed it. It felt like walking into a room where the window had been open, except the window was closed. At first, we used it for guests because we didn't know what else to do with it. A couple of relatives slept there and complained about bad dreams. One cousin said that she felt like someone was standing near the closet all night. Another one said that she woke up and just could not move. She didn't want to sleep there again, so she slept in my room with me. My parents thought that maybe people were just uncomfortable because it was a different house. But then, my uncle slept there one night when he came to visit. My uncle is not the type to scare easily. He hunts, he works hard, and he's not someone that talks about ghosts for fun. The next morning, he came out looking tired. My mom asked him if he slept okay, and he said no. He said that he woke up in the middle of the night and could not move. He could hear someone breathing near his face. Then, he heard a chair fall. But the problem was that there was no chair in that room. There was only a bed, a small dresser, and a lamp. No chairs, no stool, nothing that would make that sound. After he said that, my mom got quiet because other people had mentioned similar things. Not the chair sound, but the sleep paralysis. My uncle said that he did not know what was in that room, but he told my mom to not let young kids sleep in there. After that, we used the guest bedroom mostly for storage. But even when nobody slept in there, we still heard things from that room. Sometimes it sounded like someone dragging something across the floor. Sometimes it sounded like someone sitting down on the bed, causing the frame to creak. My dad was trying to be logical about it. He's a little bit older, so he would just tell us that it was probably just the house making noises on its own. But I think that even now, he just didn't want to scare us. My dad would check the windows, check the vent, check the doors and everything. My dad one time even checked the attic access, even though it really wasn't connected in a way that would make sense. He always ended up not finding anything. The weirdest sound, though, about that room was the chair falling. We heard it more than once. It would happen randomly at night. A loud wooden clatter from inside the guest bedroom, like someone tipped over a chair. Every time we opened the door, the room looked the same. Bed, dresser, lamp, storage boxes, but no chairs. I remember one night my dad got frustrated and started cursing and cussing at whatever it was. My dad was just so mad he was saying all these things to the spirit and entity. After a while, my dad calmed down and everything went back to normal. I have a few more things that I want to share with you. At this point, while we were living in this house, it was pretty clear that the house was haunted. However, it just wasn't enough to the point where we were going to do anything about it. I'll tell you this though, the creepiest thing that came from that house was when we started to hear the sound of someone crying. This happened closer to the end of us living there. By then, we were already pretty uneasy about the house. My mom wanted to move, but it wasn't easy to move, so we stayed longer than we should have. One night, I woke up because I thought I heard someone crying. At first, I thought it was my mom. The sound was soft and muffled, like someone trying to cry quietly. I sat up and listened. The house was dark except for the hallway light. The crying came again. It was coming from the guest bedroom. I didn't get up right away. I sat there, trying to convince myself that it was something outside. Maybe an animal, maybe a cat, maybe the wind. But it sounded too much like a person. It sounded like a woman crying. I decided to get up and go to my parents' room, even though I was really scared. My mom was awake too. She was sitting up, looking at the door. I whispered to her if she heard it, and she nodded. My dad woke up after us, and he heard it too. He got out of bed and turned on the hallway light. The crying stopped. He walked into the guest bedroom and opened the door. There was nothing in that room. It was empty and cold. We didn't really sleep much after that. Now, the sound of crying didn't happen all the time. It would happen once in a blue moon, once in a while. It would happen just so infrequently to the point where we would forget about it, and then when it would happen, we would remember it again. Eventually, one day, my mom decided to ask around. She talked to one of our neighbors who was older and they were retired, living a couple of houses away from us. She asked if they knew anything about the people who lived there before us. The neighbor was hesitant at first, but eventually told her that a woman and her family used to live there. They weren't sure what happened there, but one day the ambulance showed up and the family eventually moved out. At that point on, my parents knew that the house was haunted and that it might have been the spirit of someone that died there. Eventually, we were able to move out of the house. Through the help of my uncle, he was able to get us in touch with one of these Hmong homeowners who were looking for tenants to rent their place. We decided that the best next thing was to move out of that house because it was getting a little too scary. Now, before we left, my parents told all of us to not say anything about leaving. They told us to just say that we were going to the farm to go pick some vegetables and that we'll be back home. And so that's what we did. We packed up all of our things and said that we were going to go to the garden and come back home. After that, we left and never came back. Even now, I still think about that house. Sometimes I even dream about it. But whatever happened there, I'm glad that it didn't follow us to our new home. Guys, I've been to Wausau, Wisconsin a few times, and I'll tell you, it's a pretty nice town. Is it a town, village, city? I think it's more of like a city. It's a little bigger. And it's got a lot of fun things to do there. But I definitely agree that some of the houses there do look a little too old and a little too creepy. Now, as I was reading the first story, the one with the squirrel hunting guy and he brought home something kind of evil, I was reminded of something similar that I went through when I was younger. Now, I didn't go squirrel hunting or go anywhere near the woods and brought something home, but I do kind of relate, especially when it comes to the time when he was asleep and he felt like something grabbed him. It wasn't exactly like that for me. I remember that I was asleep and I was in bed. And during that time, I had one of these like tiny iPods. It was when like the iPods were the touchscreen ones and it was tiny. It was so small, but mine was like blue and it was one of those that didn't have the outer camera. I only had the selfie camera because I was too poor to afford the nice ones. And, you know, I had my wired earbuds plugged in because that was popular back in the day. And one of those wired earbuds, they only last so long, and you have to kind of like adjust it in a certain way just so you can hear the music. That's what I was doing. But I remember I fell asleep and the wired earbuds were in my ear, and in the middle of the night, I felt something yank my phone. I kid you not. I felt something yank my phone. And so I woke up and I was like, what the heck? Did it fall off my bed? That was the first thing that I thought happened, was that my iPod, my earbuds and everything fell off my bed. So I turned on the light right next to me, the lamp right next to me. And then I looked around the ground. I didn't see my iPod. And I didn't have a case on it. It was this bright blue iPod, no outward facing camera. And it should have had a wired earbud connected to it, but nothing. Not under my bed, nothing. And my bed was pretty clean. Like underneath my bed, I didn't have anything. I barely had anything. It was like a box filled with like Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff like that. But for the most part, it would have not got lost under my bed. So then I looked under my brother's bed because we shared a room and we shared separate beds. And there was nothing under there either. Like my iPod was just gone. So I went to school the next day without having an iPod, looking like one of those cool kids. And I came back home and I was kind of annoyed, wondering where the heck my iPod would have gone. I was looking. And I kid you not, it was under my brother's bed. Like, it shouldn't have been there because I checked there. I checked there thoroughly. The time when I woke up in the middle of the night to that next morning when I woke up in the day, the lights were on. I checked everywhere. It was not there. But for some reason, there it was. My iPod was just laying underneath his bed, still with the earbuds attached to it. And I was just so shocked and dumbfounded. But yeah, reading that story just reminded me of that experience. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe. I really need those subscribers so that way I can get some more adult beverages. If we can hit 10,000 subscribers, guys, I will do a double slam back to back. Promise you guys, without a doubt. And YouTube's telling me that you might enjoy this video on screen. So please click on it and subscribe. Bye. See you guys.